Betrayal can come from the person you marry. Sometimes the cruelest rejection becomes your greatest liberation, and true wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the good you can do for others. If you're listening to this, I want to ask you something. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video. So let me start at the beginning. I grew up in Atlanta, in a beautiful, historic home in the Buckhead neighborhood. My mother, Eleanor Richardson, was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and change its energy simply by existing. She didn't demand attention, she commanded it through presence alone. My father left when I was 6 years old. He was a musician, talented but unreliable, and he couldn't handle the demands of fatherhood, or the fact that my mother was building something extraordinary. He told my mother he needed space to find himself. What he actually did was disappear to Los Angeles with a woman named Crystal and never looked back. My mother never spoke badly about him, not once. Even when I was old enough to understand that he had abandoned us, she would simply say, "Your father is a good man who wasn't ready for the responsibility of love. That doesn't make him evil, it just makes him human." I was angry at him for years, but my mother's grace in handling his departure shaped how I understood forgiveness. My mother, Eleanor Richardson, was a woman of extraordinary vision and work ethic. She had started Richardson Global Enterprises with nothing but an idea and a loan she barely qualified for. The company began as a consulting firm focused on supply chain management and logistics for the retail industry. But my mother was brilliant in a way that transcends normal business intelligence. She could see patterns that others couldn't see. She could anticipate market shifts before they happened. She had an intuitive understanding of what businesses needed before they even knew they needed it themselves. By the time I was born, Richardson Global was already a substantial company. But my mother didn't stop there. She expanded into technology, into artificial intelligence for supply chain optimization, into international markets. She built partnerships with some of the largest companies in the world. And she did all of this while being a single mother. I remember her working late into the night, at her desk in our home office, solving problems that seemed impossibly complex. She would have conference calls with people in Tokyo or London or Sao Paulo while I was doing my homework at the kitchen table. She would take breaks to help me with math problems or to listen to me talk about my day at school. "Amelia," she told me once when I was around 10 years old, "I work this hard for 2 reasons. First, because I love what I do. I love building, creating, solving problems. And second, because I'm building this for you. I want you to never have to depend on anyone. I want you to have choices, real choices. I want you to be free." But even as she said that, I could sense there was something she wasn't telling me. Later, I would understand that she was building something far more significant than I had ever imagined. My childhood was privileged in every material sense. I went to the best private schools, I had a nanny and a housekeeper, I traveled internationally. My mother bought me what I wanted, but she was strategic about it. "Wanting things and having access to things are not the same thing," she told me when I was 13, and begging for the new designer bags that all my friends had. "But all the girls at school have them," I protested. "I know they do, and I could buy you 10 of them right now, but that's not actually doing you a favor, Amelia. What I'm doing is teaching you the difference between what you want and what you need, between temporary satisfaction and actual fulfillment." Instead of buying me the bags, she took me to volunteer at a homeless shelter. We served meals to people who didn't have homes, let alone designer bags. I remember holding a cup of coffee for an older woman named Miss Patricia, and she thanked me so sincerely with such gratitude that I felt something shift inside me. My mother didn't preach about it afterward. She didn't say, "See, now you understand the value of what you have." She just let the experience speak for itself. That was my mother's genius. She taught through experience rather than lectures. My mother was also very protective about her wealth and what she had built. Very few people knew just how successful she had become. Even in our own home, she lived relatively modestly. The house was beautiful, but it wasn't ostentatious. Her car was a luxury vehicle, but not the most expensive. She dressed well, but in a way that didn't scream, "I'm extraordinarily wealthy." The moment people know how much you have, they start making decisions about you based on that. They stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a walking bank account. The money becomes your identity, and that's a cage, Amelia. I refused to let that be my cage. I think this is important context for understanding what happened later, because it meant that the people around me, my friends, my teachers, even some of my extended family, didn't fully understand my mother's power and influence. They saw someone successful, yes, but not someone at the highest levels of American business, and it meant that I didn't fully understand it either. I was 28 years old when my mother got sick. She had been healthy her entire life. She exercised regularly, she ate well, she managed stress through meditation and long walks. And then one day she went in for a routine physical and they found something. Cancer. Stage 3. I remember the day she told me. We were sitting in her office and she was completely matter-of-fact about it, which was so like her. She said, "I'm going to fight this. I'm going to do the treatment. I have an excellent oncologist, and statistically, the prognosis is good. But I want you to be prepared for the fact that I might not win this fight, and I want us to talk about some practical matters." "Mom," I said, tears already streaming down my face, "don't talk like that. You're going to be fine." "Probably," she said, "but in case I'm not, I need you to know some things." What she told me that day changed everything. She told me that she had set her affairs very carefully. She had a will, a trust, and detailed instructions about what she wanted to happen after her death. "The company, Amelia, will pass to you, not eventually after probate and legal battles, but immediately through the trust structure I've set up. You will be the sole beneficiary and you will control all the shares. You'll also have an executive team you can rely on. I've handpicked them and they're loyal to the company more than to any individual. That's how I've ensured continuity." "How much is the company worth?" I asked. My mother smiled, a small, sad smile. "Roughly $300 million in annual revenue and approximately $800 million in assets, conservative estimate. The company has never been publicly traded. I've kept it private intentionally." I felt the ground shift beneath me. I had known my mother was wealthy, but I hadn't known the actual scale of it. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Because I wanted you to live a normal life. I wanted you to make your own choices based on who you are, not based on what you might inherit. I wanted you to understand yourself as a person of value, independent of money. And because I'm not dead yet, Amelia, I plan to keep running this company for many years." She was right. Her cancer went into remission after 6 months of aggressive treatment. For the next 3 years, she was cancer-free. She seemed to be winning. She went back to work part-time, then full-time. She traveled, she was vibrant and present, and more herself than ever before. I stopped worrying about her dying. I thought we had been given a reprieve, that the cancer had been a false alarm, that she would live for decades more. I was wrong. I met Marcus around this time, the year after my mother's cancer went into remission. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was working as a project manager at a marketing firm, living independently in a condo in Midtown Atlanta, building my own life separate from my mother's company, because even though I knew about the inheritance, I wanted to prove I could succeed on my own merits. Marcus worked at the same firm. He was in the business development department. He was handsome, median height, light brown skin, the kind of symmetrical features that seem almost computer-generated in their perfection. But more than his looks, it was his confidence that drew me in. He approached me at the office holiday party. "I'm Marcus Thompson," he said, extending his hand. "I've seen you around. You're the project manager on the Hartwell account, right?" "Amelia Richardson," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm and warm. "And yes, that's me." "I heard you just brought that project in under budget and ahead of schedule," he said. "That's impressive." "Thank you," I said. I was pleased that my work was being noticed. Would you like to get coffee sometime? He asked. I'd like to know more about your strategies. I think we might have some synergies to explore. At first, I thought this was a professional overture. Maybe he wanted to collaborate on a project. But when I agreed to coffee, I realized that his interest was personal. Marcus was charming. He asked me about my goals. He listened when I talked about my dreams. He made me feel like my thoughts and opinions mattered. He was also very interested in my background, my family, my mother's career. Your mother is Eleanor Richardson, he said when I first mentioned her name. The Eleanor Richardson, the entrepreneur? Yes, I said, not thinking much of it. Do you know her? Not personally, he said, but I know her reputation. She's built an impressive company. Has she ever thought about taking it public? I know some investors who would be very interested in that kind of opportunity. I don't think that's her plan, I said. But I was pleased that he knew who she was, that he recognized her accomplishments. It felt validating in some way. We dated for about 2 months before he asked me to be his girlfriend officially. We were sitting on my balcony, overlooking the Atlanta skyline, and he took my hand and said, I really like you, Amelia. I'd like to know if you'd be willing to give this a real chance. It was sweet and sincere seeming, and I said yes. Over the next year, Marcus was the kind of boyfriend that seemed almost too perfect. He was attentive without being clingy. He was romantic without being over the top. He was interested in my life, my thoughts, my dreams. He suggested I should quit my marketing job and work for my mother's company instead. You have such an impressive background, and your mother is one of the most successful businesswomen in the country. Don't you think you'd rather be part of that? You could move up faster there than you will at a marketing firm. I resisted at first. I wanted to prove I could succeed on my own, but he had a point. I was stagnating in my current job, working on accounts that didn't particularly excite me, reporting to people who were less ambitious than I was. So I talked to my mother about opportunities at Richardson Global. She listened to my pitch, asked me thoughtful questions about why I wanted to make the change, and then she offered me a position, Vice President of Operations, reporting directly to her. It was a significant promotion, and I took it. I learned later that Marcus seemed very pleased when I told him about this change. In fact, looking back, I can see that the timing of his requests and suggestions always seemed to coincide with moments that would benefit him, times when my connections could help him, times when my access to certain circles could further his interests. But I didn't see it then. I just saw a boyfriend who supported my career advancement. He told me he loved me about 8 months into dating. We were in bed and he rolled over and said, very seriously, I love you, Amelia. I want you to know that. I love you and I want a future with you. I said it back. I meant it. Or I thought I did. A year after we started dating, Marcus proposed. He did it at a restaurant in Buckhead, the same neighborhood where my mother's house was located. He got down on one knee with a diamond ring that was substantial but not ostentatious. The restaurant staff applauded, I cried, and I said yes. My mother was happy for me, but I noticed something in her expression when I told her about the proposal. It was a hesitation, a flicker of something I couldn't quite identify. That's wonderful, sweetheart, she said, hugging me. I'm happy for you. You don't seem that happy, I said. I am, she assured me. I just want to make sure you've thought this through. Marriage is a big commitment. I want to know that you're sure about Marcus, that you're not just moving forward because it's the next expected step. I'm sure, I said. I was sure. I was in love. What I didn't know was that my mother had quietly conducted a background check on Marcus. What I didn't know was that she was deeply concerned about his motivations and had specifically investigated his financial situation and his family history. What I didn't know was that everything she was seeing was setting off alarm bells. Planning the wedding was complicated. Marcus had very specific ideas about what he wanted, and most of them involved demonstrating status and wealth.
He wanted the most prestigious venue. He wanted a large guest list that included people who were influential in various industries. He wanted the wedding to be a spectacle, something that would impress people and make us the talk of Atlanta society. My mother wanted something more intimate and personal. She wanted to focus on the commitment we were making, rather than the performance of it. This is about you and Marcus making a promise to each other. It should reflect that. It shouldn't be about impressing people who don't actually care about your relationship. Marcus was dismissive of this idea. "Eleanor," he said to my mother at one point, "with all due respect, a wedding is a statement. It's about showing the world that we're building something important. Amelia and I have an opportunity to make a statement about who we are and what we represent." My mother's expression became very still when he called her by her first name. She had indicated to him, subtly but clearly, that she preferred to be addressed as Mrs. Richardson. The fact that he was ignoring that preference was telling her something. But I was caught in the middle, trying to please both of them, trying to create a wedding that honored my feelings while also meeting everyone's expectations. We booked a venue at the Georgia Aquarium, a beautiful, impressive space with room for 300 guests. We planned an elaborate reception with a live band and catering from a prestigious Atlanta restaurant. It was going to be expensive and grand, and exactly the kind of spectacle that Marcus wanted. About 3 months before the wedding, something that, in retrospect, should have been a much bigger red flag than it was. Marcus and I were at dinner with my mother. She had invited us both to her house for a meal. It was a relatively formal occasion. My mother had cooked, which was something she rarely did, and she had set the table carefully. During dinner, my mother asked Marcus about his family, about his parents' business, about his background. He was evasive in a way I hadn't noticed before. He kept deflecting the questions, turning them back to me or my mother, asking her about her business instead of answering about his own family. "Your father is in real estate, correct?" Marcus asked directly at one point. "Yes, corporate real estate development." "Has his business been doing well recently?" my mother pressed. "It's been fine," Marcus said, but there was tension in his jaw. "Why, does it matter?" "I'm just trying to get to know you better," my mother said smoothly. "After all, I'm about to have you as a son-in-law. I like to understand people." After dinner, when Marcus had left and my mother was helping me clear the table, she said, "Amelia, I need to talk to you about something, and I need you to listen to me with an open mind." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I've had someone conduct a background check on Marcus, and I've learned some things that concern me, things that I think you should know."
I was angry. I was embarrassed that my mother had investigated my boyfriend. I was defensive of him. "Mom, that's an invasion of privacy. It's protection," she said firmly. "Amelia, Marcus's family's financial situation is not what it appears to be. His father's real estate development company is heavily indebted. They're behind on multiple mortgages. The family is in significant financial difficulty, and they've been keeping up appearances through leverage and debt. They're essentially bankrupt, and no one knows it yet." I shook my head. "That doesn't have anything to do with me." "Doesn't it?" my mother asked. "Amelia, people's families' financial situations can tell you things about their values, their priorities, and sometimes their desperation. I want you to think about whether Marcus has asked you about your financial situation, whether he's been interested in whether you have money." Now that she mentioned it, I realized that yes, he had asked about my trust fund. He had asked about whether I expected to inherit from my mother. He had asked about my mother's wealth. "He's just curious," I said. "That's normal." "It may be," my mother said, "but I want you to be careful. I want you to pay attention, and I want you to know that if anything ever feels wrong, I'm here for you." I resisted her counsel. I pushed back against her concerns. I accused her of being paranoid and overprotective. I was angry with her for investigating Marcus and for planting seeds of doubt in my mind about him. But she had planted those seeds, and despite my best efforts to ignore them, they started to grow. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, things changed between Marcus and me. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable, but looking back, I can see the exact moment when something fundamental shifted. He started being critical of me in small ways. My laugh was too loud, my opinions were too strong, I was too much in social situations. I needed to tone down my personality. "You intimidate people," he told me once. "The way you talk about your work, it makes people uncomfortable. You should learn to be more humble about your accomplishments." I found myself trying to make myself smaller. I stopped talking about my work. I stopped sharing my ideas in social situations. I deferred to his opinions and his judgment. And the more I diminished myself, the more distant he became. It was like chasing someone who kept walking away. The faster I ran to catch up, the farther he went. Against the warnings that echoed in my head, warnings I should have heeded, I married Marcus. The wedding at the Georgia Aquarium was everything he wanted it to be. Grand, impressive, a spectacle designed to announce to Atlanta society that we had arrived. 300 guests, a live band, a 10-course dinner, champagne that cost more than some people's monthly rent. I looked beautiful in my wedding dress. My mother cried during the ceremony, and I genuinely believed, as I said my vows, that I was making the right choice. The honeymoon was in the Bahamas. It was perfect in every way. Marcus was attentive, romantic, completely focused on me. It was like the first days of dating all over again. He couldn't keep his hands off me, couldn't stop telling me how much he loved me, couldn't stop talking about our future together. I thought I had been wrong about my mother's concerns. I thought Marcus had simply been insecure, and the wedding had proven to him that I was committed. Everything seemed to be changing for the better. We moved into a beautiful house in Buckhead together, a property that my mother helped us purchase as a wedding gift. Marcus quit his job at the marketing firm. He said he wanted to focus on building something new, on exploring business opportunities with my mother's company's contacts. My mother gave him access to some of her contacts. She helped him explore potential ventures. She was trying, I think, to make the marriage work, to give him the benefit of the doubt. For the first 2 years, it was good, really good. We had dinner parties and attended galas, we traveled, we built a life together. I threw myself into my work at Richardson Global. I was being groomed as my mother's successor, learning the business, understanding the systems, beginning to take on more responsibility. And Marcus seemed content. He seemed to be genuinely settling into married life. But around year 3, things changed. It was subtle at first, like a shadow passing over the sun. Marcus started to become critical of me in small ways. My laugh was too loud, my opinions were too strong, I was too much in social situations. I needed to tone down my personality. "You intimidate people," he told me once. "The way you talk about your work, it makes people uncomfortable. You should learn to be more humble about your accomplishments." I found myself trying to make myself smaller. I stopped talking about my work. I stopped sharing my ideas in social situations. I deferred to his opinions and his judgment. And the more I diminished myself, the more distant he became. It was like chasing someone who kept walking away. The faster I ran to catch up, the farther he went. Against the warnings that echoed in my head, warnings I should have heeded, I married Marcus. The wedding at the Georgia Aquarium was everything he wanted it to be. Grand, impressive, a spectacle designed to announce to Atlanta society that we had arrived. 300 guests, a live band, a 10-course dinner, champagne that cost more than some people's monthly rent. I looked beautiful in my wedding dress. My mother cried during the ceremony, and I genuinely believed, as I said my vows, that I was making the right choice. The honeymoon was in the Bahamas. It was perfect in every way. Marcus was attentive, romantic, completely focused on me. It was like the first days of dating all over again. He couldn't keep his hands off me, couldn't stop telling me how much he loved me, couldn't stop talking about our future together. I thought I had been wrong about my mother's concerns. I thought Marcus had simply been insecure, and the wedding had proven to him that I was committed. Everything seemed to be changing for the better. We moved into a beautiful house in Buckhead together, a property that my mother helped us purchase as a wedding gift. Marcus quit his job at the marketing firm. He said he wanted to focus on building something new, on exploring business opportunities with my mother's company's contacts. My mother gave him access to some of her contacts. She helped him explore potential ventures. She was trying, I think, to make the marriage work, to give him the benefit of the doubt. For the first 2 years, it was good, really good. We had dinner parties and attended galas, we traveled, we built a life together. I threw myself into my work at Richardson Global. I was being groomed as my mother's successor, learning the business, understanding the systems, beginning to take on more responsibility. And Marcus seemed content. He seemed to be genuinely settling into married life. But around year 3, things changed. It was subtle at first, like a shadow passing over the sun. Marcus started to become critical of me in small ways. My laugh was too loud, my opinions were too strong, I was too much in social situations. I needed to tone down my personality. "You intimidate people," he told me once. "The way you talk about your work, it makes people uncomfortable. You should learn to be more humble about your accomplishments." I found myself trying to make myself smaller. I stopped talking about my work. I stopped sharing my ideas in social situations. I deferred to his opinions and his judgment. And the more I diminished myself, the more distant he became. It was like chasing someone who kept walking away. The faster I ran to catch up, the farther he went. Against the warnings that echoed in my head, warnings I should have heeded, I married Marcus. The wedding at the Georgia Aquarium was everything he wanted it to be. Grand, impressive, a spectacle designed to announce to Atlanta society that we had arrived. 300 guests, a live band, a 10-course dinner, champagne that cost more than some people's monthly rent. I looked beautiful in my wedding dress. My mother cried during the ceremony, and I genuinely believed, as I said my vows, that I was making the right choice. The honeymoon was in the Bahamas. It was perfect in every way. Marcus was attentive, romantic, completely focused on me. It was like the first days of dating all over again. He couldn't keep his hands off me, couldn't stop telling me how much he loved me, couldn't stop talking about our future together. I thought I had been wrong about my mother's concerns. I thought Marcus had simply been insecure, and the wedding had proven to him that I was committed. Everything seemed to be changing for the better. We moved into a beautiful house in Buckhead together, a property that my mother helped us purchase as a wedding gift. Marcus quit his job at the marketing firm. He said he wanted to focus on building something new, on exploring business opportunities with my mother's company's contacts. My mother gave him access to some of her contacts. She helped him explore potential ventures. She was trying, I think, to make the marriage work, to give him the benefit of the doubt. For the first 2 years, it was good, really good. We had dinner parties and attended galas, we traveled, we built a life together. I threw myself into my work at Richardson Global. I was being groomed as my mother's successor, learning the business, understanding the systems. The admission was so blatant, so calculating that I almost had to admire the honesty of it. "I want a divorce," he continued. "I want to be with Jessica. She's also getting divorced. We want to build a life together. And you deserve someone who actually wants you for you." The words were almost kind, which somehow made it worse. The divorce proceedings were civil, which surprised me. Marcus didn't try to fight for money or assets. He just wanted out. He wanted to be free to be with Jessica. He wanted to erase the mistake that was our marriage. My mother handled the legal side. She made sure that everything was divided fairly, though Marcus didn't deserve anything close to that. But I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to drag things out. I just wanted him gone. The separation took 6 months to finalize. During that time, Marcus moved in with Jessica. They were very public about their relationship. They attended parties together, they posted on social media, they seemed genuinely happy. And I watched from a distance, feeling like I was observing someone else's life. When the divorce was final, my mother took me to lunch. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "I know this is painful." "You tried to warn me," I said. "From the very beginning, you tried to warn me, and I didn't listen." "You learned something important," my mother said. "You learned that you can survive betrayal. You learned that you're stronger than you thought. And you learned that the people who love you truly don't need you to be anything other than yourself." I didn't feel strong. I felt humiliated. I felt foolish. I felt like I had wasted 3 years of my life on a man who had been using me the entire time. But my mother was right about one thing. I survived it, and I would be okay. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, my mother made a public announcement. She was retiring from day-to-day operations at Richardson Global Enterprises and transitioning authority to me. "My daughter, Amelia Richardson, will be taking over as CEO," she said at the press conference. "I have full confidence in her leadership, her integrity, and her vision for the company." The news made headlines. A young Black woman was taking over one of the most successful companies in Atlanta. There were profiles written about me. There were think pieces about women in business. And most importantly, there was a financial disclosure that came with the announcement. For the first time, the world learned that Eleanor Richardson was worth approximately $800 million, that Richardson Global Enterprises had a valuation of approximately $2.2 billion, that the company was one of the most successful privately held companies in the country. And it didn't take long for Marcus to find out. 2 weeks after the news became public, Marcus called me. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me wanted to hear what he had to say. "Amelia," he said, and his voice was different. It was the voice of someone who had realized they had made a terrible mistake. "I need to talk to you." "About what?" I asked coldly. "About us," he said. "About the fact that I made a huge mistake. I had no idea. I didn't know about the real extent of the money. If I had known that your mother was worth this much, that you would be inheriting this much, that you would be CEO of a $2 billion company, I would never have—" "You would never have what?" I interrupted. "You would never have left me? You would never have cheated on me? You would never have been honest about the fact that you were using me?" "Amelia, please," he said. "I want to make this right. I want another chance. I'm leaving Jessica. I made the wrong choice. I miscalculated. But I love you. I've always loved you." "No," I said. "You made exactly the choice you wanted to make at that time. You thought Jessica was better positioned than me. You were wrong, and now you want to come back because you realize I'm the actual prize." "That's not fair," he said. "Life isn't fair, and neither are you." I hung up the phone. He tried to contact me multiple times over the following weeks. Letters, calls, text messages. He showed up at my office. He showed up at my mother's house. He reached out through mutual friends, trying to convince them to help him get back in my good graces. Each time, my response was no, because I finally understood what my mother had been trying to teach me all along. A person's worth is not determined by whether someone wants to be with them. My value doesn't increase because I inherited money. It doesn't decrease because my husband left me. I was valuable before I was rich, and I would be valuable if I lost everything tomorrow. Marcus had tried to use me, and when that didn't work, he tried to win me back. But the only thing he had actually taught me was the importance of listening to the people who loved me, and the importance of knowing my own worth. When I became CEO of Richardson Global Enterprises, I faced a choice. I could have used my wealth for myself. I could have bought mansions and yachts and traveled the world. I could have accumulated power for its own sake. But that was never what my mother built this company for. Instead, I made a different choice.
3 months after taking over as CEO, I announced the establishment of the Eleanor Richardson Foundation, an organization dedicated to lifting people out of poverty, addressing systemic inequality, and creating opportunities for those who had been left behind by the system. The foundation's first initiative was addressing homelessness in Atlanta. We funded housing programs, we provided job training and mental health services, we invested in community development. We didn't just give money, we built systems designed to create lasting change. The second initiative was education. We created scholarship programs for students from low-income backgrounds, we funded schools in underserved communities, we invested in STEM programs for students of color. The third initiative was women's economic empowerment. We provided microloans and business training for women entrepreneurs. We created mentorship networks. We funded childcare facilities so that mothers could work and pursue their dreams. My mother had built Richardson Global Enterprises with integrity and vision, and I was determined to honor that legacy by using the company's resources to address the inequities that so many people face. I made another choice. I chose to not remarry. People asked me about it constantly. Friends wanted to set me up with eligible men. My mother, before she passed away, gently suggested that I might want companionship. Society told me that a successful woman without a husband was somehow incomplete. But I had learned something important through my marriage to Marcus and my divorce from him. I had learned that being alone is not the same as being lonely. I had learned that my worth doesn't come from being desired by a man. I had learned that I could build a fulfilling life that didn't center on romantic partnership. I dated occasionally. I had relationships with men who were thoughtful and kind and genuinely interested in me. But I never felt the need to commit to anything permanent. I had my work, I had my friends, I had my mother for as long as she was alive, and I had the profound satisfaction of knowing that my life was making a difference in the world. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. My mother's cancer came back when I had been CEO for 4 years. Stage 4. The cancer had metastasized. I remember the day she told me. I was at work, and she called me directly. Her voice was calm, but underneath the calm, I could hear her fear. "I'm sick again," she said, "and this time it's different. This time it's much more serious." I left work immediately. I went to her house and found her sitting in her garden looking out at the roses she had planted over the years. She looked small in a way she never had before.
"How long?" I asked. "The doctors are saying 6 months to a year," she said, "if the treatment doesn't work. And they're not optimistic about the treatment." I felt the ground shift beneath me. I felt my entire world starting to crumble. My mother reached over and took my hand. "Amelia, I need to talk to you about what's going to happen," she said. "I need to prepare you, and I need to know that what I've built will continue." Over the next few weeks, my mother began the process of preparing me to fully embrace my role as guardian of her legacy. She brought in her executive team. She introduced me more formally as her successor, not just in title, but in vision. She also spent hours going through documents with me, making sure I understood not just the mechanics of the company, but its soul, the values and principles it was built on. "This company was built on integrity," she told me. "It was built on solving real problems for real people. It was built on the idea that you can be successful without being ruthless, that you can make money while also doing good. I want you to maintain that, even when it's difficult, even when it would be easier to compromise." I promised her I would. My mother died on a Tuesday morning in late March. She had been declining for several days, slipping in and out of consciousness. She had been on heavy pain medication, and then one morning, she simply stopped breathing. I was there. I was sitting in the chair beside her bed, holding her hand, and I felt the exact moment when she was gone, when the energy that had animated her, that spark of fierce intelligence and determination that had defined her entire life, simply extinguished. The funeral was held a week later. It was enormous. People came from around the country, business partners, employees, people from charities she had supported, people whose lives she had touched in various ways. I learned stories about my mother that I had never known. I learned how much of an impact she had had on the world. In the years since my mother's death, I have dedicated myself to the work she began. I expanded the Eleanor Richardson Foundation. It now operates in 12 states and has impacted over 50,000 lives. We've provided housing for homeless individuals. We've educated thousands of students. We've funded women entrepreneurs who have gone on to create millions of dollars in value and employ thousands of people. I also expanded Richardson Global Enterprises' focus on corporate social responsibility. We now partner with nonprofits and social enterprises. We use our platform and our resources to advocate for systemic change. And I have continued to live my own life, a life that is full and meaningful and complete, even without a spouse. I have deep friendships. I have colleagues who have become like family. I have the profound satisfaction of knowing that my work is making a difference in the world, and I have the legacy of my mother, which I carry with me every single day. I'm 32 years old now. I run a $2 billion company. I have a foundation that's making real change in the world. I am single, and I am fulfilled. I am strong, and I am vulnerable. I am powerful, and I am humble. And I think often about Marcus and about the lessons that experience taught me. I learned that charisma is not the same as integrity. I learned that people can hide their true intentions behind attractive facades. I learned that the people who love you most will sometimes see things you can't see yourself, and that listening to them can save your life. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I learned that I could survive betrayal and come out the other side not just intact, but more whole. I learned that I could stand up for myself and for other women. I learned that my worth is not determined by whether someone wants to be married to me. And most importantly, I learned that true wealth is not measured in dollars and cents. True wealth is measured in the good you can do for others, in the relationships you build, in the legacy you leave behind. My mother left me an extraordinary legacy, not just a successful company and significant wealth, but a set of values and principles that I carry with me every day. She taught me that business can be ethical. She taught me that success doesn't require compromising your integrity. She taught me that having resources means having responsibility. And she taught me that the most important thing I could ever do with my life was to lift other people up and to use whatever power and privilege I had to create change in the world. I'm grateful for that legacy. I'm grateful for her wisdom and her strength and her grace. And I'm grateful that I get to honor her memory by continuing the work she started. If you've experienced something similar to what I experienced, if someone married you and betrayed you, if someone pretended to love you while actually using you, if someone's true colors only showed when you became financially successful, I want you to know something. That's not love. Love doesn't calculate. Love doesn't use. Love respects you, values you, and wants you for who you are, not what you have. Just for you. That's the most important thing I have to say. And if you're a young Black woman trying to make your way in a world that wasn't built for you, trying to be successful in industries where you're often the only woman in the room, trying to navigate relationships and business and family, I want you to know that your strength is not a liability. It's your superpower. Don't shrink yourself for anyone. Don't diminish your voice to make other people comfortable. Don't compromise your integrity for love or success. Because in the end, the only thing that truly matters is that you can look yourself in the mirror and know that you acted with integrity, that you treated people with respect, that you used whatever power you had to do good. My mother taught me that. and I'm spending my life trying to teach it to others. I chose not to marry again. I chose instead to marry my purpose. I married the work of building a better world. I married my mother's vision, and that marriage is far more fulfilling than any romantic partnership could ever be. Thank you for listening to my story.